He's had now a number of threats made against him. In fact, he told me that he found a bullet casing placed by his car. And that sort of thing just shouldn't be happening. We want to get infrastructure projects in the ground and rolling so that we can get the services that are delivered to our communities. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are other elements of involvement through politicians, through political parties. There are allegations that some political parties are closely linked to these construction mafia and in fact receive funding.
They need to be investigated with urgency. This mafia is among several groups with invested interest in ensuring that the supply of water is disrupted in South Africa. Turton warned that other groups see these as disruptions as a way to foment social unrest. So, it's Dean said it earlier on, you could find that there are political parties that are benefiting from there are people that are who are hell-bent on making quick and easy money. They don't have to tender for any deal. They just have to create a private security company, guys with guns. We've seen them in KZN. Some of them are very well known. And some of them are just untouchables. Nothing has been done about them. We've even heard the police commissioner in KZN saying there's a problem with a black man. I was like, no, man, but for it to know it can't be. How can he say such things? But then if you look at the type of violence and the criminal activities in KZN, who are holding the government to ransom. The new Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation, Sello Tlholo, warned on Monday there are interruptions that are happening across the water-related and sanitation projects at a local level. He said during a media briefing to unpack the Department of Water and Sanitation budget vote and plans. We've got these so-called SMMEs, small, medium and macro enterprises that are disrupting and extorting money from construction companies, all in the name of that particular 30% that I spoke about, he said. Now there is no...
In 2019, and then announced at the State of the Nation address by the President in 2020 that there are specific teams that will work on it. So it might be from that period where it's calculated.
Yeah.
What's up, people? Welcome to it, man. This is another episode of the Free Ride podcast. And of course, I just wanted to share my thoughts about something that really caught my attention over the last weekend. And it's basically a question that got me thinking, right? Are we living in a mafia state? Are we living in a state where the mafia, the corrupt, the gangs, Makinza, Bitsotsi, they are just running amok of the country? They just do whatever they want. I want to focus on two particular mafias that I want to talk about. The last time I spoke about a mafia that jackrolled the whole VBS. And of course, he revealed all sorts of names and people. And now that matter is ongoing, the matter of VBS. So that's one aspect of a mafia who really just took money away from people. So I want to have a look at this particular mafias that are ravaging the country, that are messing up the country, that are untouchables. And you would have heard in Parliament they spoke about them. Dean McPherson, the Minister of the DA, the GNU DA, he spoke about the construction mafia. And the second mafias that I want to look at is the water tankers mafia. I'm not going to go into the coal mafias. I'm not going to go into those mafias that messed up Transnet. If you think about all the train stations that were messed up, Disporo, all the wires, so that they can get back tenders and get business and get work. So I want to focus on the two for now because I don't want to be too long. So the first one I want to talk about is the construction mafia. Now, so there's an article, right? It's actually a report. I'm not going to go through the whole report. It was written in 2023 in December. It was written by Marian Webb, Creamer Media, and the writer is Daryl Swanepoel. All right. So So it says South Africa's construction industry, traditionally a key driver of economic growth and development, has been grappling with significant challenge in recent years, the encroachment of criminal elements known as construction mafias. These illicit networks initially surfaced in KwaZulu-Natal. About a decade ago, their influence has since expanded across all provinces, resulting in significant losses to the economy. The construction sites, ranging from small business-driven to large-scale projects, serve as the prime targets for these decentralized syndicates. Leveraging local connections, they employ tactics such as extortion, violence, intimidation, and disruption to advance their objectives. Extortion has seeped into the fabric of the business landscape and now considered an unfortunate cost of doing business. So if you are thinking you're going to get into the construction industry, be careful. Be careful. This report encapsulates key insights from a seminar conducted by Inclusive Society Institute centered on the repercussions of the construction mafias on the construction industry. The seminar served as a follow-up to a previous construction summit, during which the profound impact of these illegal activities on the industry was highlighted as a major concern. Addressing these challenges posed by construction mafias is imperative to revitalize this vital sector of the economy. Over the past 15 years, the once thriving construction industry has experienced a sharp decline, in large part owing to the government's failure to deliver a promised infrastructure project. Remember, all the announcements in the last 10, 15 years where billions of rands were put aside towards road constructions, water constructions, like a whole bunch of major construction projects that have been put on hold. And I'll talk to them as I go along. So government has been failing to deliver on all these projects, whether it's roads, you name it. And it's because largely these construction mafias have been holding government projects to ransom. The re-establishing the industry on a solid foundation is crucial given the powerful role that the construction can play in poverty reduction. Construction has an inherent capacity to generate an additional economic outputs and jobs, particularly for lower skilled and semi-skilled workers. Okay, so the article goes on to say the construction mafias, once labeled as business forums, are networks that employ violence and other illegal means of controlling access to public sector procurement opportunities. These groups typically invade construction sites demanding money or a stake in development projects. They might say they want 30% of the deal so that the project can continue. Otherwise, they are going to threaten you, kill you, and all sorts of things. So in 2019, at least 183 infrastructure and construction projects worth more than 63 billion rand has been affected by the construction mafia. Since then, invasions have continued and construction sites across South Africa, the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Projects of 2022 have reported. So I want to take a break. I want you to listen to the Minister, Dean McPherson, what he had to say, because in fact, before we play that, I mean, I've got a colleague, actually not a colleague, a neighbor who was telling me, Mzala, Sipu, yazi ngiphume eKZN Dagabab. I am never going back there again. I was supposed to do, he's in a shop fitting and building clubs and stuff like that, okay? Clubs, restaurant, pubs, that's what he focuses on. There was a project in KZN, he had to stop. And he says, I mean, he lives in a Roodepoort area, right? So he comes and says, they come and they followed him at home. They're demanding a 30% from him. And if he doesn't do so, the project will not carry on. And he said he had to put a halt to it. He's no longer doing business in KZN because how dangerous it is. But don't take it from me. Listen to what Dean McPherson had to say, the minister.
Let me start with the construction mafia. How widespread is the problem of hijacking government construction sites?
It's widespread across the country, but it's particularly pronounced in KwaZulu-Natal. It's moved into the Western Cape. It's showing itself in Mpumalanga as well. And the truth is that every time one of these sites are hijacked or brought to a stop, it's the community that suffers the most.
Yeah.
And communities rely on this infrastructure not only to better their lives, but for job creation and to connect them to other parts of South Africa. These are not business forums, as some would have us believe.
Yeah.
These are highly organized syndicates, criminal networks that are very well armed and that have intelligence and are well funded. And so I think the sooner that we're able to start treating them as a threat and an enemy of the state, the better we're actually going to be able to deal with them more decisively and not with sort of maybe the kid gloves that we've done previously. There's no room for negotiation. There's no room for talks. We want to get our sites back on track and to put these people in prison. That's where they belong.
You mentioned two provinces that seem to stand out, KZN and the Western Cape. In fact, in the Western Cape, if my memory is correct, a death has been recorded in this regard. Why do you think these two provinces appear to have this kind of problem, and is it intractable?
I think that because there's a lot of infrastructure investment and development that's been going on in KZN and the Western Cape. KZN, we've seen a lot of investment in roads and water projects, so there's a high prevalence of interference in those. In the Western Cape, we're seeing a lot of private investment as well into infrastructure-led projects there. And I think that to the credit of Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis, they've taken the right approach to this, a very tough stance. They've capacitated their law enforcement agencies through the Metro Police. They've made additional funding available, and they've also made rewards available for intelligence that leads to the arrests and conviction of those that are responsible for these crimes and acts of crimes against the state.
Yeah.
And in fact, now people have been arrested for that murder because of information that was supplied to law enforcement.
In KZN, there is a current case that is ongoing of a businessman whom we understand is involved in the construction business. Police officers targeted him and they shot at his car. What saved his life was that the car is an armored vehicle. In other words, it cannot be penetrated by bullets. How dangerous is KZN around this?
KZN's a dangerous place, and I've had a number of discussions with the MEC of Public Works and Infrastructure, Martin Meyer. He's had now a number of threats made against him. In fact, he told me that he found a bullet casing placed by his car. And that sort of thing just shouldn't be happening. We want to get infrastructure projects in the ground and rolling so that we can get the services that are delivered to our communities. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are other elements of involvement through politicians, through political parties. There are allegations that some political parties are closely linked to these construction mafia and in fact receive funding during the election campaign. Some parties took umbrage to that when I pointed that out in Parliament.
So you heard for yourself, man. So, I mean, Dean McPherson spoke about one of the MECs in KZN who's been receiving death threats. So here, KwaZulu-Natal Public Works and Infrastructure MEC Martin Meyer said he will continue with his plans to out construction mafias in the province despite the death threats made against him. His plan includes meeting with legitimate business forums in the industry and establishing a key task team. The construction mafias, which call themselves community business forums, are well-known problem in the industry, demanding a percentage of payment of a security fee from contractors working in these areas in which they operate. So that's the one story about the minister, MEC, who's been threatened in KZN. But I mean, this goes further. I mean, you heard Dean McPherson spoke about this goes as far as now crossing over to the Western Cape. And I'm sure there are certain projects in Gauteng that have also been affected by the construction mafia. Some of them, Batola Dinkabi from KZN. These Nkabis are hired hitmen who are always ready to pull a trigger, and they come and they can be brought anywhere across the country. So Dean McPherson says, who is the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, he took to social media expressing his strong support to the public-private partnership initiative in Cape Town that aims to combat the so-called construction mafia, which has been hampering development projects in the city. He commended the collaborative efforts of City of Cape Town, Atterbury, Old Mutual Properties and other stakeholders in addressing this challenge. I mean, you heard he spoke about it right there. But he also goes on to say, from my very first day in office, I've been clear that the South African government would not be negotiating with criminals such as the construction mafia, but would rather work with the role players to address the scourge in our communities to safeguard the infrastructure projects. So, I mean, that's going on and on and on and on across the country, as I said. And of course, there seems to be a problem with the construction mafias, even in the water projects. I spoke about that. South Africa's multi-billion rand water and sanitation infrastructure projects are being destabilized by the construction mafias who are holding the government to ransom. The new Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation, Sello Tlholo, warned on Monday there are interruptions that are happening across the water-related and sanitation projects at a local level. He said during a media briefing to unpack the Department of Water and Sanitation budget vote and plans. We've got these so-called SMMEs, small, medium and macro enterprises that are disrupting and extorting money from construction companies, all in the name of that particular 30% that I spoke about, he said. Now there is no upskilling, there is no development, so it's a lose-lose situation for the government because the government is being held to ransom. So where are the cops? Where's SAPS? Where's the Hawks? Where are the SIUs? Where is the army, bro? We're sending the army to other parts of the world to go and sort out issues across Africa, guard mines that belong to some certain individuals who are strongly connected to those who are in power. But we're not dealing with this matter because this is why we have so much lack of service delivery, because this one aspect of dealing with service delivery is to build infrastructure. And now if the construction mafia are not being dealt with, if we're not playing tough with them, we're going to continue having more and more of these problems. These projects are worth billions of rands, but they will not see a light of day because of the construction mafia, he said. The Water and Sanitation Minister, Pemi Majodina, said the department had built 18 new dams since 1994, while there are 15 major national water resource infrastructure projects at more than 100 billion rand in different stages of implementation. So you also find the corruption within the Department of Water, those who are then deployed, who are working in those departments, tell their people, their friends. I mean, you heard what Dean McPherson said. He even said, some of these parties are being funded by, in fact, one party in particular has been funded by the construction mafia, he said. Some of these projects involve raising the walls of existing dams, others the construction of new dams. Many of these projects were delayed for a long period of time, but they have now been unblocked and will be the priority for us to ensure that they are implemented expeditiously, she said. Okay, so that's another story, man. Which brings me back to I want you to take a listen to this, and when we come back, we'll definitely take a listen to what Dean McPherson had to say in Parliament. And then
he's in Parliament, where I have parliamentary privilege. But it's not hard to imagine how these parties, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal, were funded out of nowhere. They had declared no money to the IEC. They 1 minute they didn't exist. The next minute they were absolutely everywhere, gazebos, T-shirts, rallies, and so on and so forth. That money didn't come off of a tree or didn't drop from the sky. That came from criminal networks that are supporting them to be into power. And, you know, the one thing that I heard which was fascinating is that straight after the election, political parties and business people already started deciding what contracts they were going to get in KwaZulu-Natal because they didn't believe that we were going to be able to form a coalition government or government of provincial unity, which is why we acted with such speed, so we could close that space and ensure that we protected government and protected the resources of government from criminal networks.
So safe to say that that particular political party is not in government in KZN as we speak.
Well, if you put it all together, I'm sure you'd be able to assume who they are.
All right.
So what are we going to do? What are we going to do about these construction mafias? Or just mafias? Are we a mafia state? Are we run and controlled by mafias? Is the state helpless? Is the state powerless? Is the state unable to deal with the intelligence that these guys operate in? Because it's intelligence. It's using community workers, using some of the people that are working in these projects that issue out these tenders, supply chain management. They know exactly who's received what tender at what time. They know all that information. But is the state aware that there are people who are hell-bent on making quick and easy money? They don't have to tender for any deal. They just have to create a private security company, guys with guns. I mean, we've seen them in KZN. Some of them are very well known. And some of them are just untouchables. Nothing has been done about them. We've even heard the police commissioner in KZN saying there's a problem with a black man.
80% of our cases are coming from here. So if we can deal with the Tegwini's problem, followed by Mgungundlovu, we will have won the war. So it's more peaceful to live at Mzinyati district, to live at Herikwala district, to live at Umkhanyakude district, than to live at Tegwini. So these are the stats, and these are the biggest, this Tegwini district, Mgungundlovu, they account for the biggest number of informal settlements that we have. The biggest number of liquor outlets, biggest number of all the wrong things, unemployment, kids that are dropping out of school and they wander on the street and they commit crime. They are all within this Tegwini district. So we need to identify what the problem is and how then do we fix it going forward. Our perpetrators, Premier, we felt we must put this light so that we can identify what is our problem, because we need to analyze what is the problem. The problem we have, you forgive me on this, but this is not me talking, these are the stats. We have a problem with the black man in South Africa.
Yo, I was like, no, man, but for you to know it can't be. How can he say such things? But then if you look at the type of violence and the criminal activities in KZN and how brutal they are, and it's spreading into the rest of the country, man, unless something gets done quickly. So here's another one that I wanted to talk about. It's the water tanker mafia. Can you believe it? I can't even believe that I'm speaking about such a thing, man. So the water tanker mafia is entrenching itself in many municipalities across South Africa, causing chaos, deliberately disrupting water supply to secure tenders. While this mafia has been prevalent in KZN for over a year, offshoots are starting to spring up in economic hub of Gauteng, which prolonged water outages that have plagued the use of water tankers in Gauteng has skyrocketed. And the increased demand for water and deteriorating infrastructure has seen multiple areas go weeks without a precious resource. I can tell you now for free, man. You can go to the Joburg Water website or even the social media platforms. You can see of all the alerts that are coming out and just problems with water across Johannesburg. And I'm not even talking Gauteng. But here's another big problem. This has resulted in the rise of water tanker mafia that profits from these supply disruptions, with Tshwane being particularly hard hit. Themba Fosi, who's the head of utilities, right? Temba goes on, he's the regional operations and coordination for Tshwane municipality. He said the municipality spends around 98 million rand on water tankers annually. The water tanker mafia is being felt across the city, particularly in Bronkhorstspruit, where in several instances we found our valves being tampered with, he said. There's a huge amount of vandalism. You see, this is a mandate and not due to infrastructure failure. Eventually, this leads to water tankers being the order of the day. We have instances where invoices from water tankers are questionable. This tends to be a challenge for us because in some instances, documents are falsified. Fosi explains that there were numerous instances across Tshwane where water pipes and valves have been tampered with or broken. There are things that we have found out as a city, and the Tshwane Metro Police Department, we have also received tip-offs from the community that they have seen some water tanker guys going and doing some shoddy work at our reservoirs and fire hydrants. That's information that's coming through. However, we don't have capacity. Capacity is a problem here. To conduct an intense investigation, we rely heavily on the police when cases are lodged through them so that they can conduct investigations fast. And can the cops do investigations? Can they really? Can we really trust the cops? I mean, I have been a victim of crime on 2 occasions which I've never reported simply because I have no faith in the cops. No faith whatsoever. Water scientist Dr. Anthony Turton warned that the collapse of the water infrastructure has resulted in water tanker mafias being entrenched in South African municipalities. This is part of a new trend where we can see that our infrastructure is not in healthy shape at all, and politicians are only waking up to it now, Truton said. The crisis has been exploited by water tanker mafia, which deliberately sabotages infrastructure to win or prolong contracts to supply water to affected areas. There's a thriving tanker mafia in KZN that actively sabotages the water infrastructure. They do this to continue and prolonging their contracts with the municipalities to provide water tankers across communities that need water. He added that these tankers suppliers do not source their water from safe portable sources. Instead, they take unsafe water from dams or rivers as they are paid per tanker. My God. Are we even sure about the water that's been supplied to our communities, that it's clean? I mean, according to this, they get taken from all right, so
water. Now, taps are running dry in many parts of the country, but the pockets of water tank mafias are certainly not running empty. The criminal syndicates are thriving, especially in KwaZulu-Natal. What they do is they allegedly sabotage the water infrastructure so they can then profit by providing tankers to affected areas. The chairperson of Parliament's Water and Sanitation Portfolio Committee, Robert Mashego, joins us to discuss this further. Good to have you with us this morning, Mr. Mashego. Tell us about how this actually came to your attention as the Portfolio Committee in Parliament dealing with issues of water and sanitation.
Good morning to the listeners and the viewers. Look, we were a little bit worried because every now and then when you install infrastructure today, 2 days thereafter, the infrastructure is gone or it is back to unworking conditions and so forth and so on. We started then following up on, not only in KZN, but all over the show, following up on what is the issue. So sometimes you have people who are holding meetings alongside the project that you do, only to realize that the people that you talk to most of the time are people who have got their trucks, who are actually the ones who are servicing people with water in case where there's no water. But immediately when you leave the area where we have installed the project, within their presence, the infrastructure is gone. But we have realized that in fact they are very well organized. They are removing them deliberately because it affects their business. and it's not only in KZN, as I'm saying, all over the country, that is the situation.
Are you saying then, Mr. Mashego, that these water tank mafias are the businessmen themselves, the entrepreneurs themselves, that the municipality uses in order to provide water to the communities, and whom the municipalities actually contract whenever these type of services are needed?
Yes, exactly the point. In actual fact, they're in cahoots most of the time, even with the officials of the municipalities where they are operating. Sometimes you find that even the trucks are sometimes owned by municipal officials themselves.
And so what is the solution to this problem, especially when you're saying that this also could be an internal issue, that there are those within the municipality who are working in conjunction with this water tank mafia?
Look, we have arrested some, and most of the time they unfortunately you find that the judgment are against ourselves. But there are most of the time where we arrested those mafias, and as I'm saying, some of them you will find that they are municipal officials who themselves have bought trucks. You can't understand, when you are an official, why did you buy water tank when you are not supposed to be a service water tankering system as municipal employees? So we do. Unfortunately, they are so organized. They are broad. You don't end them with immediate effect, but we do arrest some of them.
And as far as the procurement processes are concerned, is this something that you've gone into to look at as to who are these businesses, how were their contracts even initially handed out to them, and whether they are actually valid and regular?
Remember, I am the chairperson of the oversight committee. My responsibility and duty is to oversight the executive authority that need to deal with those sexual inaccuracies is the department led by the minister. So as and when he called us in to come and oversight, we find those, but we are not allowed generally to go into the details of how the work happens, because we are an oversight committee rather than an executive authority.
So talk to us about the way forward now. Yes, the problems have been identified. What are the type of solutions that your portfolio committee is actually putting in place? What is the way forward? You know the problem. What are the solutions?
As part of the department being an oversight committee that oversees the department, we do have quite a number of meetings with the department, like we will be having one after the portion of work today, to plan as well. How do we move forward? Honorable Minister Mkunu do have a working plan, but unfortunately, as you know, the municipalities themselves plan against the very same tide. So we really need to work together as a DDM, district development model, wherein we take all departments, the police, the intelligence, and everybody else to work with. Because in the absence of that, infrastructure is damaged all over the show, railway lines, SCOM, and so forth and so on. We are just part of the bigger scheme of things. But we are planning together with the intelligence, with the police, and sometimes we will want even to use the army to help us to sustain the fight against these particular criminals.
These elements thrive on chaos, right? And they need to be investigated with urgency. This mafia is among several groups with invested interest in ensuring that the supply of water is disrupted in South Africa. Turton warned that other groups see these as disruptions as a way to foment social unrest. So, you know, I mean, it's Dean said it earlier on, you could find that there are political parties that are benefiting from their co-funders, their members who are in business, who have now taken on this thing. There was a guy who was arrested in Klerksdorp. He's a former councillor, and apparently this guy was going and terrorizing all the projects until the cops eventually, the NPA or the SIU or one of these other law enforcement agencies got involved, and the guys got caught. Okay, which is good. We must see more arrests happening. Let's bring the army to deal with this thing because a lot of money is at stake. He mentioned that the acts of sabotage on water infrastructure are often a precursor to a widespread social unrest. It's going to create more social unrest. People are going to be saying, government is failing, government is not doing enough, the government is not doing much. Kante, that time, it's being sabotaged by these guys. What we do know is during the 2021 looting in KZN, the precursor to that was the tampering with valves and infrastructure. In fact, they destroyed the valves in some municipalities. We have seen videos of activists damaging water valves and infrastructure during the recent unrest in Durban. This could well be part of a trend, and it is important that we get on top of this. This has a potential to be a national security concern. So, I don't know about you, man. We've been affected in our areas with water problems, and of course, we've had to, in fact, what prompted me to actually record this is that a mate of mine who lives in Midrand, he phones me up. Main guy is his name. Main guy says, boss man, let me show you this letter here. Check it out. This letter here is actually from Joburg Water. Main guy says, we have a problem with water, and we have a problem with, actually it's city power. But there's a voice note he sent me, man.
No water for the last 2-3 weeks. No, just 2-3 weeks we've been having serious water problem. You always have water stored, mostly in the evening. Oh, now it's back. Water is back. Mostly in the evening, water bounce, and then man, you always need a bucket, guy. It's not embarrassing to have a bucket in Midrand, just for control. Pretty much, can I disgust you? You know how Emakaya they use bathrooms without water? Can you always need that bucket with water in the bathroom just for safety? That's our vibe, man.
That's crazy.
Oh shit, that's crazy.
That's just insane, man. So anyway, I don't know what we're gonna do about it, but in case you do know and you've got information, be careful. Don't just go and report, and don't be known when you report. Try and be as anonymous as possible, and call and report any suspicion or any suspicious activities, whether it's tampering with electricity in infrastructure, whether the tampering of water infrastructure, you name it. We've recently seen it got Transnet. I spoke about that during the lockdown, these mafias went big in destroying the rail infrastructure, so that when Transnet, when the country opens up, Transnet needs to fix the infrastructure, which is what they had to do. And those who were lining up to get some business, they knew exactly what they were doing by damaging our infrastructure. So we need to be careful of our infrastructure. It's the only infrastructure we have, and it was handed over to us when we came into power in 1994. A lot of these infrastructure projects were up and going, and pretty much billions that were meant to be put aside to deal with infrastructure backlog, all those billions are gone, man, because people just decided the mafia. So are we a mafia state? Are we run by the mafias? Are we afraid of the mafias? Are we doing anything about it? Are we? All right, man. This is how I come to the end of it. This has been an episode, the Free Ride Podcast. Thanks for watching. Let us know your thoughts, and thank you so much for subscribing, for sharing, for liking. Our numbers are going up. Can you believe it, man? Thank you very much. I can't believe it, because I'm trying my best to give you as much better content all the time. Hola.